different sectors in our space, as well as the different types of recruitment and the challenges that we face. So that's been my history and my background to date. I left the recruitment corporate, market at the end of last year to start my own business in terms of training people in the industry, people like yourselves, and also people wanting to come into the industry. And in that open space where I found myself unemployed is the best way to say it, threw myself out into the open market, and I was able to pick up a recruitment contract that was for an internal job. So I was offered this opportunity. It's in a government department and it's running their recruitment function. And I'm still doing that part-time whilst doing my business. So it's actually really interesting now. I've actually gone to the other side, but I feel like I've gone to the other side still as an agency recruiter. I'm an agency recruiter through and through. I won't ever change that, but I'm kind of working on the inside. I'm spying on the inside now. And I thought this was a really cool opportunity to share some of what I've learned from that experience. I'm still working there at the moment. So I'm talking to, as I said, many of you might have been in presentations where you've heard from an internal recruiter, but they've crossed over. They're gone. They're an internal recruiter. Now they think like an internal recruiter. As I said, I still think like an agency recruiter. So I want to be able to provide that benefit to you. I also wanted to get a couple of different angles. So I've spoken to other talent acquisition people in the industry, and I'm going to reference one in particular who gave me some really valuable information about some of the commercial environments she's worked in. So I'm going to share that with you as well. But yeah, this is all about me sharing what I've learned and what I know so far to ideally help you make more placements with internal recruiters. So that's the context, that's the history, and I'll just jump into the presentation now. Can everybody see that screen okay and hear me okay? Okay, good, excellent. So I want to just start by kind of making the distinction that internal recruiters, as we all know, are starting to call themselves talent acquisition. And I say, it's just a fancy name for recruitment. And that's what I tell my rookie trainees that I'm bringing into the industry when I try to make this distinction for them. I say, there's recruitment consultants, and they used to be called recruiters internal or internal recruiters, and now they've trumped up a fancy name for themselves called talent acquisition. It's the same thing. But in reality, it's actually not. I'm saying, well, yes and no. And I want to make that distinction a little bit because I think that will help us unpack this a little bit further. So I really believe that talent acquisition is actually much more. It's kind of recruitment plus. So yes, the primary function of it is about acquiring talent. It's about finding the right people for the organisation when they need it. But as I said, it's a bit more than that. It's actually greater than just the recruitment element internally. I'm talking internally here. Pardon me. It's workforce planning. Okay, so it's going back much earlier than the recruitment process and looking at what are the opportunities that the business needs to capitalise on, what are the upcoming projects, what is the talent that we've got internally. So they map their own internal talent and understand what skills and experience they have and look at those gaps. So that's starting to get into more of an HR position, and it's not the same at every organisation, I understand, but they do get involved in a greater sense in that workforce planning conversation. It's the start of the recruitment process. Talent acquisition is also about employer brand positioning. So it's also about them looking at where they sit in their market, where they fit in their market, how they're perceived, and what the brand reputation is. A lot of what they think about is targeted in that sense. They think about how can we make sure that when we do advertise and we do go to market, we attract the candidates we want to, we attract the best candidates. So that employer brand positioning is really key in that talent acquisition role. Selection capability is another function that's part of talent acquisition's job internally. They need to make sure that not only are they great recruiters and they're able to find the talent, that their whole internal workforce that are making the selection decisions are also well equipped. Someone's on their phone. So they've got to make sure that the hiring managers internally are able to conduct good quality interviews, are able to make decisions, are able to ask good questions, are able to analyze and decipher that information. So there's a whole recruitment capability piece that they need to build inside. And it's not about making hiring managers recruiters. They don't want recruiters. There's always going to be that specialized talent as well, internal and external. But they've got to build that capability up so that when they find good people, the hiring managers are recognizing it quickly or being able to make those decisions quickly. So selection capability internally is an important part of talent acquisition. And then, of course, talent pooling and pipelines. So thinking about what might be available, what might be coming up, what's happening in the market that's going to impact their ability to fill jobs when they need it. So, as I said, to me, it's much more than just recruitment. And I know for a lot of you on this call, you'll be doing a lot of those things for your own business and also for some of your clients as well. Some of you are involved in brand positioning campaigns with your clients. Some of you are involved in building those talent pools. But for the vast majority of us in recruitment, we are about recruiting. It's rubber to the road element. There's a vacancy and we want to fill it, right? We don't really expand ourselves too much further either side of that in a lot of cases. And so I see the roles as slightly different. I do. And I think that's a good thing. And I want to explain why. What I didn't say in this earlier is if you have a question and you want to ask it through the session, feel free to do that, but maybe use the chat if your mic is off. So feel free to chat, and Tony's watching that. He'll jump in if he needs to, or he'll ask at the end. We'll have lots of time for questions at the end as well. So I want to share I don't know why my presentation wasn't supposed to do this. I hate it when people do this annoying thing, bring the words. But anyway, it's doing it on its own. I want to talk about recruitment and talent acquisition working together, right? I've talked about a pair, and I've used an analogy of a pair of pears. But I want to think about defining them separately, but in a good way, because I want to think about them working together better. So when I'm through this presentation calling it recruitment, I'm talking about us. I'm talking about agency. When I'm talking talent acquisition, I'm talking about internal recruiters, just for clear definition of terms as I'm working through. So I hope that's okay. Oh, where's that going to the next one? I'll go to the next slide. Hang on a second. I'll just escape out of here. I don't know why it's doing that. Sorry, guys. All right. The first thing I want to address in talking about working together better is I want to talk about positive language. I actually see and hear a lot of negative language in our discussions, and I'm talking about us as an industry. So I know they talk negatively about us as well, but let's just address what we can address, which is our own industry. And I really think we need to think about using more positive language in talking to internal recruiters and our clients as a whole. So we need to change that dialogue of the negativity. We all do it. We're all guilty of it. And in a lot of cases, it's true. Don't get me wrong. I don't for a minute think that that it's all in our heads and it's our fault. Most of the bad conversations that go on and the negativity comes from real examples that often treat us really terribly. They're often terrible clients. They're often, really poor communicators. There's always those issues. I get that. But you have to also draw the line somewhere. Two wrongs don't make a right. Your mum told you that. You've got to look at how can we change this around. And as I said, I think thinking about it more positively and changing that dialogue is a really great start to this. I think about conditioning the thinking of the talent acquisition person. So if you think about in a recruitment process, and you do this naturally without even thinking about it, you naturally prepare your client for what they will have to accept as far as candidates go in the market, and you prepare your candidates for what's going on in the job market. It's called conditioning. In the real estate industry, they call it buyer conditioning, seller conditioning, right? So they come in and they have a look at your house and they give you a price that they think they can sell it at, but they start conditioning you slowly, little by little, planting these seeds to get you more motivated to buy. Yeah, look, we think we could get you $1 million, but look, if you're willing to put a 9 in front of it, I think you're probably going to get more interest that way, right? They start this conditioning really early in the process. And as I said, we tend to do it a little bit in recruitment as well. We tend to start saying, listen, what you're asking for, I'm not sure the salary is going to be right. You know, we've all done that. I think the salary you're asking for is a bit off, but let me go out to the market and see what we can find. So that's a form of conditioning the client. So I want you to use those skills to condition the talent acquisition person to have more positive outlook about it, to have a more positive view. And keep in mind, they often were agency recruiters, right? That's our biggest pet hate, isn't it? They act like they've never done our job. They forget what it was like and how hard it was. They cross to that other side and then they forget about us, right? So that I know is our issue. But get them to condition their thinking about the positivity of what you bring, not the negativity. Okay, so think about trying to use the right language, the right words, you know, not buying into any of that negativity and really turning it around in your conversations with them. And I put in here too, say no when you have to. I think that's something I really want to emphasize to our industry as a whole. I think we've done our own, you know, we've done a disservice to ourselves in terms of the kind of work that we accept, the conditions that we accept it under, the prices we accept it under, and we keep doing it and we keep doing it. And it's even situations like the current market that we're in that see this get even greater pressure. We feel nervous that, you know, we're not converting, we're not bringing in new business. There's not a lot of recruitment on, and so now I'll accept whatever you throw at me. I'll accept the shittest job at the shittest rate, and I don't know, it doesn't matter, and I'll just do it. And I think we have to be really careful of that. I know it's hard to do that when you are struggling and it's tough. But you have to really think about what you accept at the lowest end sets the standard of how far you can be at the top end. If you think about that, do you know what I mean? The gap between your lowest, crappiest client sets the baseline of how far away you'll get to the top client. If you allow the baseline to be higher, your top client treats you better as well. Does that make sense, what I'm saying there? Up the standard from the base, from the bottom level. I think this silly thing is not going to work. I'm going to have to keep flicking back. That's annoying. Sorry, I don't know why it won't display it properly. I'm working on a different computer, guys. I apologize. The next thing I want to talk about is attitude and behavior. So first I started with communication, and I'm going to get into the nitty gritty. At the near the end, I've got slides around kind of the do's and don'ts, the good, the bad, and the actual advice that I've taken from both my experience and the others I've collected. So I'm just going through and setting up a bit of a scene around it for you to start with, and then we'll get to that nitty gritty element. As I said, lots of time for questions as well before we finish out. So attitude and behavior is my next point. And I want to talk about attitude as a compass. If you have heard or haven't heard about this sort of saying before, if you think about the fact that your attitude determines your destination, right? And it's really true in a lot of things in life, right? It's that positive affirmation element. It's that idea, you know, if you've ever been to a personal trainer, you know, they start with that, they start from that position. Where do you want to be? What are we doing this for? Let's get a picture of, you know, let's get a picture of you in your skinny jeans and let's put that up there. And that's what we're working towards, right? It's this setting of the compass and the alignment of going, okay, we're there and that's the direction I'm going to head in, and I'm not going to falter from that. And that attitude then gives you a clear target to work towards. So it's that law of attraction, if any of you have read that book from years ago. So attitude is a compass. The way you think about it and behave and have a feeling of something will be what you end up attracting. So the negativity around your attitude towards it will attract that as well. So I think it's really important to have a positive outlook to the relationships with internal recruiters. They're a client like any other. In fact, one that you should be able to understand better than most. Yeah, because we're similar. We're similar breeds, similar species, slightly different breeds. Start as you mean to continue. And this one I want to emphasize really strongly, and I emphasize this again with my rookies when they come through my program, is that at the start, again, you're so keen and eager to build relationships. You're so keen and eager to get business in the door that you start to take second best. You start to take and drop the standards. of what you'll accept and maybe what you'll do. And it's a really dangerous place because it's hard to come back from that. So I would always encourage you to start as you mean to continue. Behave, act, be the way that you see yourself at the end of it. Be the person in the skinny jeans at the end of the process now. Start thinking about that now. Think about what you want to be like later on and behave and act that way now and have that same attitude. It's the fake it till you make it a little bit in that sense. And I really want you to think about the give to receive component, which is now more crucial than ever in business. It's the one massive sociological change that's occurred from, any type of sales or any type of relationship building that has been up to now. In the last, it's probably really the last kind of 5 years, this has really changed. If you have done any sales training, if you've done any sale, if you've read sales books, if you've done all of us have probably done some sort of sales training at some point. All of those techniques that you've been taught, all of those things that we know about sales are based on a sales model that doesn't work now. Think about that. The buying mechanisms, the way people make buying decisions were not even thought of when these sales programs were written. Solution sales and spin selling and, all of these types of sales techniques didn't have any concept of social proofing, didn't have any concept of a community element to buying. It was much more transactional. So we're in an environment now, which, as I said, has been evolving over years and years, but really kind of honed in the last 5-ish years, where people want to buy from people that are known in their community, are recommended, are trusted, are proven, have an evidence-based background. The sales pitch is out the window. The gift of the gab isn't as prominent as it was before. There were salespeople and there were not salespeople. And now it's blurred the lines a lot more. You could be a technical expert and be a brilliant salesperson, but you could be really socially awkward. You could still sell. And I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it in our industry every day. People converting from industry environments into recruiters and doing really well at it because of the technical knowledge. So I want you to think about the give to receive. This is what the whole idea of the social media element of what we do and the networking element of what we do and the giving out and the kind of the give to receive element is more prominent now, more powerful now than it's ever been. And if you're not on board with this, you need to stop and have a really good think about the techniques and the tools and things that you're using now. And I'm not saying you don't have sales skills. You have to know how to convert a sale. So don't get me wrong. There are elements to the sales techniques that we know that are still valuable. But if you're not coupling it with a mentality around being part of a community in order to get work, you're missing out on a big chunk, right? You're keeping yourself in that transactional space. All right. This is keeping me on my toes, I'll tell you now. Having to keep looking back. All right. And the other half. All right. The next bit I want to talk about is something that we'll be familiar with when you build a relationship with a client. And this is any client, internal recruiter or otherwise. We often focus on what is on the left-hand side of the screen, which is the goals, the how. So you talk to your client about time frames, you talk about the price, you talk about response times, the process. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how we do it. We've got this network. We've got this database. This is when I'll get back to you. This is how long it might take to fill. This is how much it's going to cost. Right? And we agree on all of those things with a client up front. We have to. That's part of what we do. But actually, it's much more powerful if you have a look on the right-hand side of your screen and you tie in your relationship to the client, especially in setting up that relationship into the values, the why piece. So not just the goals and how we're going to work together, but why are we working together? If you actually tie into this element to the client, you have a much more powerful relationship with them. You want it built on respect, mutual respect for what you do, for what they do. And that's where the language comes in too. Let's stop saying that internal recruiter. I'll admit it, I'm the first one. I say internal recruiters are failed agency recruiters. I say that. We've all probably said it, right? I've got to stop saying that. Stop saying that because that's not true. I'm one of them now. I'm an internal and I'm an agency. I've not failed. I'm choosing to do that right now. And I'm using all my skills, right? So one built on mutual respectful relationships, and that's what's important. Trust as well. Okay, trust, as we know, in any relationship, personal, business, or otherwise, is the absolute foundation. Without trust, the relationship has all sorts of flaws and holes in it. So it has to be built on trust. You have to build those little trust touch points through the relationship. You said you were going to call. If you said you were going to do this, do it. Right? You have to build those little tiny steps of trust that help build up an overall picture with the client. You need to think about building a mentality in a relationship of, if you're okay, then I'm okay. You okay? I'm okay. And there's too much of, I'm okay and you stuffed up. And we do it too. Oh, we sent all the candidates and they just ghosted us. They didn't come back to us. All right? That's laying the blame. That's not understanding the why. That's not understanding what else they're going through. It's not understanding what else you could do to mitigate that happening. Stop blaming and start looking for the solution to that client, to that contact, right? What could we do differently if they do struggle to get back to you in time? I'm not saying they're right about it. I'm saying you've got to change this up. So look for are you okay, then I'm okay. If we both do that, imagine that. If you and I are in a relationship together and I'm always checking if you're okay, then I'm okay, and you're doing the same, how can we go wrong? We're both checking each other is okay. Okay with the process, the time frames, the responses, is everything okay? Is everything still on track? How many of us do that through the process? I think we're scared sometimes to ask that. How's it going? Is everything on track? Are you feeling that I'm supporting you appropriately? Is the support right? Check that halfway through a process next time and see what feedback you get. Not at the end of the process. We're scared to do it halfway through. So are you okay? Then I'm okay. And think about things that provide a mutual benefit to you both. Where is the common ground as internal and external recruiters? And I'm going to come a bit more to this one, explore this one a bit further in a minute. But what are the areas that you can provide as mutual benefit to each other? To each other. You've got to provide stuff. Yes, you're the supplier, but they also provide stuff to you as well. What is it that you actually need to be able to make the relationship more trustworthy, more respectful? I'm going to need you to commit to coming back to me within 24 hours when I send you resumes. Is that a possibility? What does your process look like? Look, it's virtually impossible. I'm not going to be able to do that. All right, well, let's talk about that. Let's understand that time frame we're setting. And sometimes we're even setting it in our heads. We're not even confirming that with the client. How is that fair? We're saying, oh, we sent a resume off and they haven't come back to us. Well, did you set the expectation? Do you know what's going on their side of the fence? We just assume lots of things. That recruit, they wanted it. It was urgent, and then they didn't come back to us. Yes, it's urgent, amongst a million other things that are urgent as well. We all have that same issue. So think about things that are mutually beneficial to. So look for the balance. That's why I've got the scales there. You've got to do the goals. I get that. The how we're going to work together. But think about trying to talk to the client at the early stage. This is first client visit conversation. Why do you want to work with me? What is it that's going to make this a mutually beneficial relationship with you? Ask that question. I've just asked that. Why do you want to work with me? Don't they ask us that? Why should I work with you? They ask us that question. Just turn it on its head. Why do you want to work with me? And let's understand where they're coming from in terms of their values. All right. Next slide is about looking at the ROI. So I want you to make sure that your value is tied to the ROI. Return on investment is ROI. So I've said this all through my career whenever I've trained people in my teams and now externally when I'm doing training. Price objections are always tied to value. I can't stress this enough and try and train new people into the industry about this enough. When you have a price objection, you haven't proven value. When you've proven value, you'll get no price objection, no price discussion, or very little price discussion. It's a known truth, and it's true for all of us, no matter what your age, your background, your wealth status, your socioeconomic, any of that. Whatever we put value on, the price becomes irrelevant. Think about it yourself. Think about a brand that you know and love. Sometimes it's something to do with food, something you wear. Cars are a good one, all right? A lot of us will only buy a certain brand of car, not because it's a better car than another one. Sometimes we don't even look at the other cars when we go back out to buy a new car. We're just loyal to a brand because we trust the brand. We trust something about it. Again, you know, something might be simple as, you know, the pasta that you buy at home, right? You've tried it. It's proven. It always cooks beautifully. It never sticks. It tastes good. I've proven it. I'm not going to even look. They're all on special. I don't care. I'm buying this pasta. Actually, they could put the price up now and I don't care because I love it. Don't we all do that? Every so often you go and try, you go, I'll get the one on special, and then you kick yourself. You go, oh, I love that other one. Why did I do that? Right? So I have to stress to you to try and make sure that you are tying the value of what you do to the return on investment, not the price. Yes, we have to charge a fee. And yes, some clients will want to discuss it and negotiate it. But if it's an early discussion, as I said, you haven't proven, in my opinion, you haven't proven the value. Why would you have a discussion about price if what the person's providing is of high value to you? You're not going to try and push that price down as hard. All right, coming back here. All right, getting into some of my learnings now. And I want to explore, because this is what you came for. This is a bit you came for. I want to talk more about these, and I've got a few more slides going into more depth, but just as an overview, these are the major learnings that I found as working as an agency recruiter inside the internal environment. The first thing has been about communication. And this is really interesting to me in terms of the different types and styles and forms of communication that people have tried to use to get to me. And let me just clarify, as I said to you, I am running the recruitment department for a major government department in Victoria, in Melbourne. I have a number of recruitment consultants reporting to me. All recruitment for this division, for this department, goes through me. All of it is coming past my desk at some point or through my team. So if you want to get into this department, you've got to find me. Okay, you've got to find me. I'm a contractor in that role at the moment. How do you find me? How do you reach me? How are you going to communicate with me? And I found this has been really interesting. So obviously it hasn't been publicly announced, for one. So this is interesting for anyone trying to get to me. I haven't changed my LinkedIn because I'm on contract. So no one knows I'm there, actually. Vanessa knows I'm there. But nobody else knows that I'm there unless I tell them, unless they find me. But whether it's me or not, they've got to try and find out who is this person responsible. Isn't that what you're doing when you're ringing up? You're saying, who's responsible for recruitment? Who's the person that I want to speak to? Okay, so most people, I believe, have contacted me by phone. And this is government department has preferred suppliers. There is a panel, of course, but I still, it's still interesting to me. I didn't reach out to anyone on the panel when I arrived. I didn't tell them that I was here. I didn't introduce myself. I thought, let me just see how long this kind of takes to flow through. Didn't take long. Which was good, but it was really interesting to me that the majority of people did phone. I had a couple that emailed initially, or thought that email was the way to go. I've got one that just continues to email. I've never spoken to that person. I don't have any relationship with that person either. So I hate to say it, but picking up the phone is still a much more direct way. Email might be a way to find out and navigate your way through. But for me personally, I found the phone as those that have phoned me, we have an accelerated relationship more so than those on email. In talking about the relationship, what kind of relationship do we have? It's really interesting for them, of course, right? As soon as they find out who I am and what my background is, probably for the most part till I got there, nobody really wanted to speak to them. If I'm really honest, government departments not great at communicating with suppliers until they need you. Probably most clients are a bit like that. But I've taken, obviously, the chance to go, well, I'm going to start to change that internally myself. I'm going to start to infiltrate from inside and change people's ideas that these suppliers are there. Don't just treat them like that when you need them. Build a relationship. It'll pay off in the longer run. Okay, so I've been encouraging that from inside as well. And if you have, and most talent acquisition people, the ones that I've spoken to, encourage that as well. They're not necessarily the gatekeepers we make them out to be. And I'll explore that, as I said, with a few more examples in a minute. But the relationships that I've got with people that have come from, that are in the agency panel, to me, genuine, authentic, real. They're not trying to do the sales pitch. Now it's slightly different. They're on a panel. I get that. They're not trying to sell to me. I've had a couple who've approached me from outside as well. I give them the same amount of time. I will have a conversation with every single person that contacts me. To be respectful, learn a little bit about what they do, learn about where they're coming from. But they're also making an impression on me at that point, and that's what you've got to understand. This is the bit I've never understood about recruitment agencies and the structures. Don't put your greenest people out on the front line. Don't do that, because they're going to come across people like me, and I'm going to say, who are you, or where have you been, and what have you done? And they're going to stumble and they're going to fumble and they're going to, and I'm going to be a nice client going, it's okay, it's all right, I've been where you are, it's all good. How have you enjoyed it so far? I've had personal conversations with them to kind of settle them in. They're not all that nice, right? Not all clients are that nice. They're going to be mean and nasty. They're going to judge you on that person that's made that call. Just train your people well. So I shouldn't say don't put the greenest person on the front line. You could put the greenest person on the front line, but make sure they're absolutely trained well. Make sure they have been put through their paces. Role play that out with them. Get those nerves out. Get them practiced as best you can. Okay, so don't think that it's best to kind of let them cut their teeth and let them. They got to go. It's numbers. So just let them fire through. I'm telling you, you're doing brand damage. You're doing brand damage. Somebody's asked the question, how do you get hold of the direct number, especially in large companies with 1-3s? You've got to be more resourceful. You've got to be much more resourceful than that. Yeah, you're going to have to keep going through until you can find it. And I would suggest you're not going to keep phoning on a 1-3 number and keep asking for that person. You've got to find other ways. You've got to use your social network. You've got to find out how you can be introduced to that person outside of it. And then that way they give you their number. They give you their email. You're not hunting it down from a reception all the time. Sometimes you have to go both ways. So that's how I would answer that question around how do you get past a 1-3 number. Now, specialisation I want to talk about, and this one for me personally is a little awkward and uncomfortable. I worked for a big chunk of my career in what I would consider a generalist agency. We did everything from, white and blue, temp and perm. We tried to do kind of senior management. I wouldn't say exec. We did kind of senior management to entry-level positions and everything in between. Okay, we were what you would consider a generalist. No particular industries, no particular sectors. We changed it up from time to time. We went in one direction. We hired a consultant with knowledge in engineering, and we went down that route. And then real generalist, kind of being what I thought at the time was really adaptable and fluid, and being able to capture whatever needed to go on in the market. And that may well be true for that organisation. It's maybe survived off the back of being able to be adaptable. But what I will say that I've noticed internally is that a specialisation is really powerful. People want to deal with a specialist in the space. So those of you on the call, don't panic. If you are a generalist or you think you're in a generalist agency and you say, oh, great, now she's stuffed me up. She's told me this. What the hell do I do now? That's okay. What I want you to think about is you need to be a specialist to that client. So if you are a generalist and you need to try and narrow your focus down, you need to narrow it to that client's market at the time you're talking to that client. Tomorrow you're talking to someone else. You're a specialist in that space now as well. That's how I think you need to segment it. If you are already a specialist, good. Play in your lane. Stay in that lane. It's really powerful. That's what they seem to be looking for. They keep calling me, hiring managers in the business, 5,000 staff in the department I'm working in, calling me daily going, which agency do I speak to? Who's the specialist for this? All right. And I want to say, work with lots of different organisations, find somebody that understands your area. But naturally, I'm also looking at the list going, well, who's the specialisation? Who have they, what have they said they specialize in? And what do I know of my market knowledge about them, about whether they're specialists in that space? Are they saying they're specialists or not? So, I'm using a bit of my own knowledge, but otherwise it's what you've told them you are specialists in. So the specialization, as I said, it's uncomfortable for me because I come as an unashamed generalist. So to then say you need to be a specialist, I would have balked at that. I would have said, when I was working for that company, I would have gone, no, don't need to be a specialist. But I'm just trying to show you internally, I think that's a mindset that they expect. They expect you to be a specialist, even if it's in that lane at that time with them. They don't need to know that you do 100 other things. Be a specialist to them at the time. I want to address ad chasing. It's a tool that I've used. It's a tool that I train people in. It's a tool that I've encouraged people to use. For me specifically, in the government organisation I'm working in, totally useless. Totally useless to me. There is no point you calling me and saying, I've got a great candidate for the role you've advertised. Actually, I can't do anything about it. You may have a great candidate, but I can't do anything about it because I've now entered into a process. What I've discovered is an advert, a public advertisement going out there to the market is kind of the end of the line for them. Not the end. I mean, it's part of their process, but it's kind of like, well, I'm now doing it. I'm doing it myself now. It's not the right timing. So I won't say never. I'll say it's not the right timing. You've either got to catch it before they go out to market so you can do that on their behalf, or if they've gone to market, you've got to wait and let that play out. There's no point trying to ad chase while the ad's live or while it's still in progress. They're just not in the right. They're just like, I've put an ad out now. You're kind of too late, right? Wait till let's see. Let's see what happens. And as I said, and I'm coming at this from a recruiter that always did ad chasing. I always called, when I saw an ad, if I thought I could place it, I would ring up. It's a valid way that we sell. But I'm just telling you now internally, it's almost awkward. I can't do anything with it. I almost don't want to even see the candidate because me as a recruiter, I know if I see the candidate's better, then I'm going to tip the process. I'm going to go, oh, our ad's shit. Let's just go with this candidate from the recruiter. They're heaps better. Right? That's the recruiter in me because I want to get the best candidate. But now that I've started down the process, I've posted the ad, I've got to follow that through. Again, government, a little bit different. We do have much stricter guidelines around that. Some commercial organisations may accept a resume from you in a bit more fluid fashion. But even then, I'll still say, get your timing right. Don't call in the first couple of weeks. They're still hopeful their ad's going to do something. I reckon week 3, when the ad's gone down on the bottom of Seek's list, they're not getting as much response anymore. Keep in mind, they may not have looked at it. If they're deciding to wait till the ad closes, you've got to wait till a week after the ad closes. If they're saying to you, we're going to leave it open and we're not going to look at resumes till after the ad closes. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to give you a call a week after it closes, see how you went. So that's what I want to say about ad chasing. Price. Hasn't been as big a factor for me in the government setting, as I said, because there's a panel and it's government panel rates and they're not great, unfortunately, but they are set. So I'm not having price discussions as such. But in some of the information I collect from the other internal recruiters that I did speak to in researching for this presentation, they all ranked price at the lowest end. When I asked them, what are the things that are important in dealing with recruitment agencies? What do you look at? Price was mentioned, but I have to tell you, it was the last one every time in the people I spoke to. I spoke to hundreds of people. I spoke to a handful of people. But I think it's common. I think what I got was a good summary of the market. Price was the last factor, not forgotten altogether, but certainly not at the top. They didn't say, I want to get a really good deal. The very first thing they said, you know this, it was about a recruiter that knows the market is going to deliver on that result, is a specialist in the area and is going to get me the outcome. And then, yes, I realize there's going to be a price attached to it. I want to get as good a price I can, but I know I'm going to pay for that. Again, if your value is high, that price becomes irrelevant. Not irrelevant, but of lower priority. All right, I'm going to get into the bad now. I'm going to finish on the good. Normally do the good, the bad. There's no ugly, don't worry. But I'm going to start with the bad. These are some of the things that I've noticed, that I've picked up, that was feedback provided by some of the other providers, the other TAs I spoke to. People who are being over familiar and lack authenticity. I have to say, it stands out a mile. You know, they are real people, and yes, they're busy, and there's a whole lot of stuff going on. Don't do your sales pitch, and don't try to be over familiar, right? And you know, it's easy now at the moment to talk about what's going on with COVID, and that's a nice, you know, it's a bit like a weather conversation. You know, how's the weather where you are? That's a nice safe space to start and get someone talking. COVID's a great icebreaker to kind of go how you're going, how you're coping. But, you know, having somebody ask me about, you know, how many kids I've got and how old are they, it's just all a bit too familiar too early. All right. So just be authentic. Have a conversation like you would have with anybody that you've just bumped into on the street. You don't go into that. We tend to get into interview mode, I think. And we ask lots and lots, thinking we're asking all these great questions and question, but it's a little off-putting. It's been a little bit off-putting for me. The bad is the spray and pray, and I'll tell you what I mean specifically. We all know that term, but I'll tell you, and I can't name any names, but there is an agency that is on our panel who must have got you know, a kick up the bum. This guy must have got a kick up the bum because he's our account manager, and he mustn't have contacted, well, he hadn't contacted anyone because I hadn't heard his name for the first 4-ish months that I was there. Then all of a sudden in 1 week, I got 7 emails from other parts of the business from him. So he had contacted other parts of the business. They've gone, oh, Adele, can I flick this to you now as a recruitment manager? 7 in 1 week from this one person. Right? So it was clear to me what he was doing. He was suddenly on a sales call around, and he was calling all his contacts at department of such and such. And he was, and they were all going, you know, or he was emailing them, and then they were sending it through. So I rang him and I said, hey mate, you've been busy this week. And he was like, yep. Oh, are you the person I need to meet? And he tried to go into his sales pitch. I said, hey, slow it down. What you have just done in sending it out to everybody isn't necessarily the best way to go about it, because he wasn't waiting for any response. He was literally just going, send out. Somebody eventually will come back to me. He would have been better navigating his way through and finding out. If he had phoned somebody the first time and spoken to them, they probably would have, because they sent it straight to me, they probably would have told him, listen, there's a new recruitment manager, her name's Adele, you need to speak to her. And he could have saved the 6 other or 17 other emails he must have sent, 7 of which came to me, and he could have got straight through to me. All right. So just be really careful about the fact that you might think it's a big organization and they're not all going to talk, but they might. So just be aware of that is one thing I've noticed too. So that was just one example I had with him, poor little guy. I say little, he was young. He really didn't know. I gave him some training. I gave him some support. I was like, here's a better way to do it, mate. You know, I think he was relieved, but yeah, it was an interesting approach. Unsolicited resumes. Again, I've done a session on here with this group on reverse marketing. That's what unsolicited resumes are. It's reverse marketing. It's I have a resume and I'm going to try and find a need for this candidate. But let me tell you, there are certainly better ways to do it, better ways to interact with a client relating to a reverse marketing situation. And I would, if you did that course with me, you'll remember I spoke about making contact and finding out whether the person is the right person, whether they will accept your resume, and whether there is, you know, even an opening of being able to have an interaction, have a relationship. Don't just send the unsolicited resume cold. And that's what I'm seeing as well. And it's bad. It's really bad. It means that it shows you're stabbing in the dark, because the talent acquisition person, first and foremost, they'll use the relationship and what you know, and that you've taken time to get to know their business. If you're throwing a resume in unsolicited, unwarranted, unspoken to anybody, you are stabbing. You are just going, let me chuck this in. It's the opposite image you want to project. You'll be much better off having a conversation that says, I do have a resume of somebody that's I'm working with, that I've got exclusive opportunity to represent. I want to refer them to you, but let me talk to you a bit more about your need or needs, or whether you'd be interested in having a look. A more soft approach to that is better than just firing off the resume. Again, my opinion on this. I know some of you might say, oh, but it works for me. If it's working for you, I can't argue with you about it, but you could be doing some brand damage to it as well. As I said, there'll be some of the TAs that'll be turned off by it. And a lack of knowledge also. So a lack of understanding about the structure of the business and what they do. So another example I had from one of the panel members, she called me and she said, I'm the government contact. I'm the, for my company, my agency, I'm the government contact. Da, 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 da. I'm the person you need to speak to when you've got temp. I'm here to help. Da, 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 da. And I said, okay, great. So tell me who you've spoken to. Who are the hiring managers you're dealing with? Because I'm trying to understand who she already is working with. I'm not interested in breaking any of those relationships. I'm very much trying to facilitate good agency relationships direct with the hiring managers. So I wanted to understand who she dealt with. And she rattled off a bunch of first names, of which I was like, these names aren't really familiar. And then one name she said was an unusual name, and it caught me. And then I realised what the area was. And I said to her, can you just give me some of the surnames of the people that you're talking about? And she started to give me the surnames. And then I realised what she was talking about was one very narrow and specific area of this whole department. And she had got on and told me she was the account manager. And so I thought, and then when I realised she wasn't, and I said, okay, so you just work in this one area. That's the only area you've dealt with. Have you worked with any others? Have you been referred anywhere? No, but I'm really good there. Okay, that's great. I'm glad for you. And then I said to her, but who's the account manager? I need to go speak to that person. I have a meeting with them after this session, actually, right? Who is that account manager? I want to speak to that person because I want to understand what they know about our organisation. Because so far, good on that girl. She's the only one that's called me from that organisation, but she's only a small picture of it. And it's not actually where my need is right now. I've got needs in other places. So I want to know who the account manager is. So make sure you've got a lack of knowledge. Share that across your organisation. Make sure that the people working on the whole account know everything that's going on. That's our fault if we're not communicating that amongst ourselves within your own agency. Okay, don't keep that information to yourself while you're off selling in one area. Another consultant is banging their head in a small division. So make sure you're sharing that information. I want to move to the good and talk about some of the stuff I found that's been really positive and some of the advice I want to give you moving forward. So respectful but persistent. Those that have been able to continue to build a relationship with me have been respectful of my time, respectful of making a reasonable distance of calling. They're not calling me every week. They might be calling me once every 4 to 6 weeks. But that's just my personal, others might have a different time frame. They're persistent. They will leave a message. They will send an email, but it's respectful in its style of communication. So I would encourage you to make sure that you're respectfully persistent. Shared knowledge. And I want to talk about this one in much greater detail. I'm just referencing some notes here. I had a really in-depth conversation. One of the people that I researched with was a woman who was the talent acquisition manager at Google and at Channel 7. The media company is called West Media. And she was the talent acquisition internal recruiter in those two organisations, amongst others. And she talked in great detail about what was good and what was bad. And when I said to her, tell me about why you choose an agency. How do you choose a recruitment agency to work with? What is really important to you there? And you know what she said? She said to me, they spurred out these USPs, these unique selling points. And she said, what none of the agencies realize is it's exactly the same. You all say exactly the same thing, right? Well, you do realize that, obviously, but what else do you do, right? She said they talk about, we've got, best in class candidates. We've got, great screening tools. We got, she said it's the same shit and you're all saying it. She said, so it's not a USP. It's so blatantly obvious it's not a USP. I said, okay, so what really is? And she said, it's all the other stuff that's not recruitment. The real value of the recruitment agency to her was your non-recruitment skills. Now that's bloody simple, isn't it? We're in business as recruiters. What do you mean the non-recruitment skills? She's talking about things. She said, industry knowledge, data, information, access to things that she can't access, events, networks, all that other stuff around it that is built around recruitment, but not just the recruitment in the middle. That's a given. That bit she knows. It's all the other stuff, the agencies that were able to provide this outside layer that protects them was the stuff that she really valued. And I thought that's a really interesting element about kind of sharing the knowledge, sharing what you know, what you have with the talent acquisition person. And I'll tell you now, since I've been doing this work, I mean, I've been trying to run my own business and do this contract as well. I've had very little time as an internal talent acquisition person, very little time to keep my skills up to date. Very little time to know what the hell's going on out there, to be honest. I feel like I've started to kind of lose my touch because that's part of, as a consultant in the industry, part of what I do front and center every day. But when I've got my TA hat on, I don't have time for it. I'm trying to fill jobs and put out fires and deal with a big team and deal with hiring managers and make sure they're following process and deal with suppliers and everything else. I haven't done any development in terms of knowing what's going on, knowing what new tech is out there, knowing what is around, what's available, what are others doing. I don't know any of that. But don't you guys have all of that information? You have it and it's free. You have it and I want it. And you can give it to me for free, and I actually value it more than you telling me you've got a candidate resume. So I thought that one was really powerful. I wanted to, that was kind of my big one that I wanted to get across to you guys. You have so much information and knowledge that you don't realize how valuable it is to these internal recruiters. There's an element of what they do. They lose that outside connection. They lose touch with it. So give it back. Give it back for free. And they'll keep coming to you. That's a value add that, as I said, cheap and free and easy to do. Be proactive where it counts. So again, understand the why. Understand why they want to work with you and where would the proactiveness count. If sending resumes to jobs they've already got advertised is of low value to them because they say, listen, once I've advertised it, I've got to go out to the market, I've got to go through all those resumes. That's our process. Then don't send resumes. What other value could you do? What about when they get a large volume like they're getting now? I was just telling Tony before we started the call, I've had to advertise the job in my team recently and I've been inundated with response. I didn't even put it on Seek. I was so frightened. I put it out to the market, but in this tiny little obscure, not tiny obscure, but, in a government job board. That's the only place I've placed it and I've been inundated. So imagine had I gone to Seek, and it's not because I didn't want to get the best. I need somebody with government experience for this role. But what would be the proactiveness of that would be, for me, then maybe somebody who wants to sort through those resumes. I don't have time really to do that now. So think about where the proactiveness can count. It needs to be a consistent approach. There are people that I've spoken to early in the piece and I've not spoken to since. The ones that I can tell you, the agency names that I could rattle off right now that I remember, the contact person at those agencies are the ones that have consistently contacted me while I've been there. By phone, by email. Once we've built the relationship, they can send me an email. They send me information. They send me market updates, that sort of stuff. It keeps them front of mind in my head, even if I'm not calling them at that time. So consistency is definitely key. You can't just do what my little friend did, ring and call a flurry of people and then stop for a few months, and then ring and call a flurry of people and stop a few months. You have to find a way to do this consistently. So that's a message I want to get across to you and to filter through your teams. I think the good ones do stay in their lane, as hard as that is. And as I said, I say this with, you can see I'm so totally uncomfortable saying it, but it's really powerful. It's powerful if you say, we are specialists in this space. We know the market. We're going to give you the best people in that market. We have them all. We have access to them all. That's really powerful. I want to be able to go and with precision pinpoint that. I want to be able to go to that hiring manager and go, listen, let's not muck around. Let's not go through lots of agencies on the panel or lots of resumes from agencies on the panel. Let's just deal with this one. And I've been doing that more and more while I've been there. I've been making them match up to one agency that I know they can fill the job, rather than their previous approach before my appointment was just send it out to the agencies. That was the term. Send it to the agencies. No S anymore. Find an agency and you will deal with that one. If they're unsuccessful, then you come and talk to me. Maybe we got the wrong one, or maybe they, whatever's going on. But I want you to start with one. It's much easier for them to manage. And I want to build that relationship, and I want to advocate for, non-contingent work. I want it to be relationship built. So stay in your lane where you can. I would encourage you to build the direct relationships. I asked my friend, my ex-Google Channel 7 person about this as well. And she said, yes, she was happy also for recruiters to build relationships with the hiring managers direct, but she'd also like to know about what was going on. So treating the TA respectfully in that relationship, she actually said she liked people to ask her for the introduction. Not always was it needed, but at least that they asked her, may I please be introduced to this person? And then she could say, listen, just go direct, go talk to them, that's fine. But she liked that. She liked being kept in the loop of that. And then she knew who was playing in the space. She didn't like it when she'd just get an invoice and she'd be like, who's this agency? Where did this come from? I don't know anything about this. That put her offside. So build relationships directly, yes, but be respectful of the TA in the middle there. And the last thing I want to sort of emphasize is about working with the talent acquisition area, but as an extension of it. If you think about my first slide of talking about the fact that recruitment's part of what they do, there's other elements to it. So could you be the extension to that? Can you be the extension to talent acquisition, not the competition, and not working, alongside? Kind of a real extension is the best way I can put it. Think of the value add that you can provide. Think about how you can make the talent acquisition person look good. That's the real key to getting more business from them. If you help them to do their job better internally, they're going to come back to you every time. And another point on that, I just want to make about another person I spoke to who has worked agency and internal. And she said to me, in this current market, there are hundreds, literally hundreds of talent acquisition people out of work. They were the first to get sliced. We all know that. They're floating around now. Connect with these people now. They will have a conversation with you now because they're out of work. They don't want to be a recruiter in agency, but they might want some help with their resume. They might want some help connecting to somebody else. They might want somebody that you know. They might just want some information about what's going on in the market. Connect with talent acquisition people now. So when the market picks back up and they get a job, they're already your friend. It's a really interesting strategy, right? Offer some free advice, offer free, as I said, resume review, whatever you can do. We've got all of this, knowledge and skill we can give away for free. Do it now while the market's on its knees. When she stands back up again, you're going to be right in the right position, primed, ready to go. That's it for me. That's my presentation in its full. I try to keep it to the hour. We allow for an hour and a half in the meeting invite to allow for some questions, some conversation, comments. My contact details are on the bottom of this last slide if you wish to reach out to me separately, professionally or privately, or meet with me on LinkedIn. Feel free to do that. But I open the floor now for questions, comments. You've essentially got an internal recruiter on the call now. Ask me what you want to know. That's how I put it to you. But thanks very much for your time, everybody.
Okay, you can send a chat in there or put your hand up and unmute yourself.
Or just unmute and feel free to yell them out. Go for it.
Yeah. Adele, I've got a quick one for you while everyone's thinking about their questions. Exclusivity, it's pretty hard, right? But have you got any tips for recruiters to try and get a more exclusive relationship, given you are competing against potentially other agencies and also the internal recruitment team?
I'm going to say exclusivity takes guts. It takes the guts to say, I won't work with you unless it's under these conditions. Now, you will turn away business, you will lose some. That's why it takes guts, because there's the kind of resolve there that you kind of go, this doesn't sit right. But in order to get it to get it working, to be truly working in an environment where most of your business is exclusive, it takes the guts or the balls, whatever you want to call it, to say no. No, I choose not to work that way when you've exhausted your other options, or when you choose to work with me exclusively, because I will get you the outcome that you want. When you choose to do that, I'm happy if you want to give me a call. Maybe try me next time first. It's hard to do. I totally understand it. But at the end of it, it takes that kind of resolve, and over again doing that. And you will turn your business. I've worked in one organization in my career that had about 90% at least or 85% at least of exclusive business. That only worked with clients that worked with them one-on-one. And when I got there, I was like, wow, this is amazing. How do they do this? And I learned that from them. I learned that from the existing team. They said no. They said no. And I'm going, this business working, we're leaving business on the table here. And I watched it play out, and I went, no, you know what, at the end of the day, and I saw it go around, the client would say, all right, fine, no, we're going to go to such and such, we're going to go to your competitor, and, you know, bad luck to you. And they came back. In a lot of cases, at least 30% of them came back and said, it didn't work out. They couldn't find what we wanted. We should have come to you in the first place. All sorts of comments like that. And I was like, wow, this works. But it took some guts. As I said, it was hard for me to do it at first. If it's a strategy you want to adapt, you've got to go 2 boots and all, and you've got to commit to it, and you only work that way. And you train the client, you educate the client, you condition the client. This is how we work. And if you don't want, we're the best. You want to deal with the best, that's what you get.
Very good.
All right. Any other questions? Nothing's in the chat at this stage that I can see, unless it's still coming through. What did you want to ask when you signed up for the webinar? When you were thinking about, well, I want to really know something. What did you want to know? Did I answer it? Maybe I answered it. You just want to say you answered it. I did, Deb. Yeah. Vanessa's got one.
No, I came on to say, yes, you did answer it. I really loved the best 2 slides for me were the bad and the good. So that is really super interesting in all of that. So that's why I don't have any questions today.
Oh, good. I'm glad to, and that's why I saved those 2 for the end. So yeah. You have to sit through all the rest of it to get to those ones. But yeah, I'm glad. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, really good points, especially with working with talent acquisition at the moment.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's a really interesting relationship. It's always been difficult, but I think we're part of that issue. As I said, I really want to break that.
Yeah. So we can change that, just our personalities and how we are. We don't have to be in that, as you said, we don't have to be in that sales tool. We're already there. How can we help? What can we do to make your life and my life easier? Actually ask the question, what is going to make this easier for both of us?
Yeah, absolutely. Being a bit real about what's not right. Sometimes people ask me this one too. I'm on the panel. How do I get more work? I'm already on the panel, and how do I farm this? How do I milk it to get more work out of it? And it's got to be it's got to be about looking at what you're doing wrong as well. What am I doing wrong? What are the others doing right? How do I milk that? If that's what's working on that panel, how do I get some more of that? And maybe at the end of the day, this is what Louise said. She said, even on any panel, there are the kind of top suppliers and the bottoms. There in any panel, there are sometimes. She said on the ones that she talked about taking at Channel 7, they had 136 agencies, and she had to narrow that down, and she narrowed it even to 36. And I said to her, 36 is still a huge number. And she said, yeah, but I had them all categorized. Everyone had their lane, their specialisation, and I just went to them for some had a couple in each lane, but I shared that, alternating between the 2, and I just kept them in their lanes. They couldn't come to me and go, I'm a specialist over here in creatives, and now we want to do your accountants. She said she wouldn't let them do that. She was like, no, you stay. I'm protecting the fact that I put an accountant specialist in, so respect that. So that was an interesting one, I thought, as well. But yeah, so getting more work out of an existing arrangement, she was sort of saying, well, sometimes you'll just drop off, sometimes you won't. It's a case of building those relationships, getting proven experience, getting the results in. But if you haven't been able to do that in the time that the contract's alive, You can't turn around and go, oh, the contract stuff, you guys are idiots, right? What did you do? Take some ownership of that. Ask those tough questions. What did I do wrong? How did we go about this the wrong way? You know, and learn the lesson, and you sometimes have to move on. But yeah, it's a tough one. So I'm just going to read out Deb's. She's in a specialist area and feel that we're on the same page with a lot of what I'm saying. So that's good. Work with some great talent acquisition people, some who are lovely to speak with when they need us. I think the relationship building needs to be considered from both sides. Yeah, I agree. I think for the most part, they don't think about it until they need it. I agree. But this is where Louise was saying, for her, she isn't interested in having a chat about her kids either. She was like, it's not the person, when we're talking about building relationships, it's not knowing the names of their kids. That might be part of a relationship you have with somebody. It's what can you add value to? If they're not talkative, then just keep sending them information or providing stuff or inviting them to things. She talked about an example of an event that a recruiter took her to that she still remembers as being a standout in her career. She met some great connections. The presenter was really good, and she went along as a freebie with a recruiter who invited her to go along in the days when we could all be in a room together. But, you know, she went along to that. She said, that stood out. She said, I've been to some of the top restaurants. She was based in Sydney. She said, I've been to some of the top restaurants for free as well. She said, that makes no difference to me. I couldn't remember. I couldn't tell you those conversations. I couldn't tell you. I could have had a good time at the time and it's gone. What she remembered was going to this event. So, you know, that's an interesting thing. It's not the things we think it is. It's not the schmoozing over lunches. It's not the slabs of beer or whatever that you think are going to turn them around. It's a whole lot of knowledge that you already have up here or access to that you can get across it. Think about packaging that up.
It's like a value add on what you can help them with.
Another example was one that said there was a particular skill set, really narrow IT skill set she was looking for when she was internal, and she didn't know how narrow it was. She had a general idea, it was pretty narrow, and the recruiter she ended up working with to try to fill it actually mapped the market to some extent, came back to her and said, we've done some research and we've decided that we think there's about 50 people in all of Australia that have this skill. 50 people. And we estimate at least 2/3 of them are in, you know, locked in employment in contracts. They're not going to move. The other third, we might be able to try and entice them. We're going to do that. But how do you feel about, can we bring someone in from overseas? This is a skill set that's used in Singapore. And then they started a process with her, which involved the company sponsoring someone, but the agency found the person. She talked about that example, and I thought that was really interesting. Now, that's not always going to be right for all of us. I understand that, but it's the thinking differently, and it's what you know. And she said, had they not come back to her saying there's only 50 people in Australia, she would have just kept searching and thinking the agency shit as well, going, well, they can't give me anyone. But the agency told her exactly why from knowledge, from data, and that was powerful to her. She was able to go back to internal managers and say, we could keep advertising this for a year. We're not going to fight. We're talking about maybe getting access to 10 people in all of Australia. What do you want to do? Do we wait, or do we want to look at sponsorship? How much will that be, and how does that work? Do you see what I'm saying? It gave her tools and resource to make it move along. So yeah, you've got a lot of that. I guarantee you all have got knowledge and information your clients want. You just don't realize that they want it. Package it up nicely, you know, a monthly bulletin about your industry, a personal email, an article, a blog, you know, whatever you might need to do, a conversation, you know. I want to chat with you about this info I found out. I thought it was really interesting. Can I talk to you about this? Don't call for the job.
Yeah. Adele, so Amrita asked the question about getting phone numbers, but what would be really interesting in addition to that is, what is the best new business approach that you've seen, having been in the internal TA chair? What's been the best process that you've really warmed to that you could share with the group that they could use?
Look, I think LinkedIn is a really nice, much softer way of being noticed. So I'll give you an example. This isn't an agency, but this is a supplier that approached me in the last couple of weeks. So he he tried to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd never heard of him. I didn't know him. I didn't know what the business was either. I ignored it the first time. Actually, I went, I don't know you and I don't know what that is. And I ignored it. He sent a second request and he said, you don't know me. And I want to tell you about this because I think it could do this for you. And I thought, actually, that could. I'm a little bit more interested. But then what made me finally connect, and we've had a meeting since, was then he knew somebody that I knew. So he had gone through my LinkedIn contacts and he found somebody we had in common. He lucked it because sometimes in my LinkedIn contacts are not always people I know physically, but this one I did. And he said to me, well, actually, he was even smarter. He went to that person first and checked, and then came back to me and said, I've just spoken to such and such. We have that connection in common. Can I have some of your time? You know, as much as you can give me, as little as you can give me to run through this. And I thought, yeah, you know what? I'm going to have a look at it. Maybe timing was right for me. I connected with him on LinkedIn. I then gave him my contact information. He reached out to me direct. We made an appointment. He did the demo last week. I'm sending it off for approval today. You know, he's on board and that's a supplier, not recruitment, but a recruitment tool, let's say. So did I answer the question? So yeah, look, LinkedIn I think is still a nice, softer way. I don't get paid by LinkedIn. I don't advocate for spending any more money with it. I'll just tell you personally, I have a free LinkedIn account. I've never paid LinkedIn a cent in my whole career. And it's worked really well for me. I've made placements out of it. I've got a great network. I launched my business off the back of my LinkedIn network. I'm yet to do any overt marketing. I've not marketed myself or my business yet. So that will come one day, of course. But right now I'm riding that wave of my network, which has been built on LinkedIn. So I have to still say, I think a softer way in like that, if you can get an introduction, if you can get a referral, if you can have a person in common, all of that's a much better way to start a relationship. It starts from that position of you're not a stranger. You're not a complete nobody that I don't know. Sometimes we have to go in that cold, try and again find other ways to connect, follow what they follow, see what they're looking at, see if you can kind of get into their network without looking like you're trying to sell to them either.